Hey everyone, welcome to the Skill2Scale Show. In this show, we are growing our skills, showing you how to scale your life, whether that's in business, faith, or family. If this is your first time watching Skill2Scale Show, we're a father and son team. My name is Michael, and this is my dad, Antonio. And we talk about all things marketing, entrepreneurship, faith, family. And actually, in today's episode, we're going to be covering the richest man in history, King Solomon. And if you ever heard the phrase, success leaves clues, that's what we're going to be going after today. What clues did King Solomon's life leave behind that we can learn from, that we can apply to our businesses, apply to our life? Because a lot of people think the Bible is like only spiritual or only how we're supposed to act in person, but it is also a blueprint on how we're supposed to handle our businesses. So that's what we're going to be going after today. How can we learn from the wisest and richest man in history, King Solomon, and take his business model and see what we can apply to it in our life? And a big reason why I even dove into this topic of King Solomon, it was actually a pretty crazy story. This was a few years ago. I was at a prayer meeting. I brought my in-laws to this prayer meeting, and they were getting prayed for. And I was sitting outside the door, waiting for them. And this guy comes up to me. He doesn't speak like super good English. He comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, do you want a word from God?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And he's like, "Okay, put your phone number in my phone," because he's like very choppy English. He's like, "Put your phone number in my phone." And I was like, "Sure." And so then he sends me a text with a prophetic word. And it's like all about wealth and Joshua and how Joshua was a businessman and all this stuff, right? And I'm like, it was like really long. And I was like, what? And then my in-laws walk out. And so then we're walking out of the prayer meeting, and the guy is sitting in the lobby talking to somebody else. And then I go up to him, "Oh, thanks for the prophetic word. I didn't get to fully read it, but I'll read it later." And then he's like, "Actually, one of the things in that prophetic word is an Australian billionaire. And I felt like the Lord said, you're prime for success and you need to go." And I was like, "Okay." And so
Wow.
context, I was in full-time ministry at this point, and I had been doing TikTok stuff, like praying for people on TikTok and sharing the Bible. But some of the things I was wondering was like, I have all these followers on TikTok, but how can I take them to like a next level and relationship, right? How can I even make an income from my online platform, right? So that's the context of what's happening in my life. And so then I'm like, okay, well, that's crazy. So I write it down. And so literally like a month later, me and my wife, we go to Canada because her parents live there. We were visiting. And I stay back at the house, I think, because one of the kids was sleeping. And she goes to like, it was like a worship service. And there was like a guy there speaking. And so then she leaves because she has to put our other son to bed. And as she's walking out, it's kind of an awkward room where the door's kind of by the stage. So she's walking out and everyone can see you leaving. And so he says, "Hey, are you going?" Like from the stage, like in the middle of the meeting.
Like, hey, are you leaving?
Yeah. He says, "Hey, are you leaving?" She goes, "Yeah, I have to go put my kid to bed." And he goes, "Oh, well, I have a prophetic word for you." And she's like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "Did your husband just start a business?" And literally, I was thinking about starting like online business stuff. And she's like, "Oh, well, he's might be transitioning some business stuff and all that." And the guy's like, "Okay, well, he's going to have so many people coming to him that he's going to have to turn people away." And I
Oh,
wasn't even there. And so then she comes and tells me this. I'm like, "What the heck?" And so then I was like, maybe I should like start learning about business stuff. And so then that's really where it piqued my interest of learning business from the Bible. And obviously King Solomon's one of the best ones to learn from, and Joshua and all those guys.
100%.
But
Yeah, and for me, I was not that time period, but I remember buying a book a while ago, a long time ago, on the richest man who ever lived, which was King Solomon. He was so wealthy. I actually just looked up this morning his net worth. So King Solomon, in today's dollars, he would be worth 2.1 trillion with a T
ooh,
trillion dollars.
that's a lot.
Yeah. So as of 2021, that would be his net worth. Now, the current guys that are at the top, of their net worth is Elon Musk at $194 billion and Jeff Bezos at $195 billion. So they're only $1 billion apart. But the guy that actually would beat them, in fact, combined, would still be King Solomon.
Oh, by a
So,
lot.
yes. So that would, just to put it in context, so the person to learn from, or the success leaves clues, like you just said, Michael, would be King Solomon. And a lot of times we don't look at the Bible as the place to learn business, but it has a lot to say about business.
Yeah.
And so there's people in there that we can glean from, and it's actually set up for us to learn from King Solomon, or like Joshua, his leadership skills, or even Moses. Moses was a great leader. So we can learn from Moses and Joshua. We can learn from Boaz, his reputation as far as a leader. And so we can also learn from King Solomon. And he had weak things and he had strong things that we can glean from, things not to do and things to do.
Yeah.
And so that's actually, for me, King Solomon is a big deal, still is a big deal. I still reread his story, and we're going to do it today because there's a lot to learn from King Solomon.
Yeah. And let's dive into his life. I'm just going to give some context on King Solomon.
Okay.
King Solomon, he's obviously the son of David. So this is before Jesus. David had died. King Solomon, he's like around 20 years old. He's now the king because his dad obviously died. And so he wants to be a good king. And he's kind of in this state of like trying to figure it out. And one night he has a dream. And God came to him in this dream. And God asked him, "What do you want?" Like plain and simple, like, what do you want? King Solomon, he's 20 years old. So he's even younger than me. And he's trying to figure this out. And he could have asked so many different things. He could ask for wealth. He could have asked for power. He could have asked for like all the land, like so many different things when you're the king at 20 years old.
Right.
And he didn't.
It's like like any of us, if we're giving that type of request, like what's the lottery that you would like?
Yeah.
What's the genie in the bottle?
Yeah. Like if someone came up to you who's a billionaire and they're like, "What do you want?"
Right.
Like, what would you say? Probably like, "Oh, like maybe a bunch of money." I don't know. Right.
Right.
But he didn't say that. So in Solomon's humility, he asked for wisdom to know between right and wrong so that God could help him and he couldn't do it alone, right? Pretty much he asked for discernment and wisdom. That's what he asked for.
Yeah.
And so when I read that, I was thinking, okay, so to do business, the principle from that would be do business and life out of humility. Because if you do something out of humility, you'll have wisdom and discernment to know what is right and what is wrong. And that's essentially why he was so wise, was his decision-making skills.
Right.
Because he knew what was the right thing to do and what was the wrong thing to do. And that's discernment.
Yeah. And I even like that last part. We didn't read it right now, but I remember it, where he actually said that he wanted to know right from wrong so that he could govern God's people.
Yeah.
And so the purpose for him even asking for wisdom was to serve people. And so a lot of times we're not even, so there's 2 points. One is to be humble enough to be growing and learning and being teachable. And that's really the foundation for our lives, to be teachable and always growing. And, sometimes we don't even like feedback. I am shocked by the leaders that don't like feedback. They don't want to hear the things that are not going so well in their business. They don't want to hear, some of the things that maybe they are not doing so well. And so that goes back to the humility and being teachable so that we can actually be better leaders.
Yeah.
And so,
and honestly, when you're not teachable and you don't want feedback, you'll eventually hit a cap. Like you can only go so far without growing before you hit a cap and trying to do it yourself.
right.
So that's something that you can even take from Solomon's life. Like he was humble enough to say, like, I can't do it alone.
Right.
And that's
Help
why
me.
he was,
Help
Yeah.
me lead, help me grow, he wasn't too big for his britches. And I think the weakness is that the older we get, the more we think we know it.
Yeah.
And that's actually when we still need the most. We still need to always be learning and growing.
Yeah.
So let's look at the context of where we're going to be tackling today. Okay. So we're going to go right from the Bible. Okay. I'm going to read it to you, and we're going to start in 1 Kings chapter 10. So if you want to go and grab your Bible, you want to go and maybe even put this in your notes, you can look at it on your own time. I'm going to be reading out of the New King James Version, 1 Kings chapter 10. Now, when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. Okay. So number one, she came to test him. So we see that. Number two, in that little portion of a verse, we see that he had fame. He had notoriety. His reputation had preceded him. And that speaks a lot. That speaks volumes. Okay. If you're doing something great, if you're doing something remarkable, your reputation will spread. And that is actually really an amazing idea. And a lot of times we don't look at building our reputation, and we should be thinking about our reputation. And another part that, that we see here is that she came to him with hard questions. Okay. So she had, her own questions for her own business, her own kingdom, and she wanted to learn from King Solomon. And his fame spread. And a lot of times we don't even view it like this, but King Solomon, he put out content. And in business, we're always looking to sell something to someone. But King Solomon showed that if he does something well, and he actually put out content, he wrote the book of Proverbs, he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, he wrote the book of Song of Solomon. And it's almost like he created a bunch of quotes, like the book of Proverbs, for example,
like a bunch of tweets.
Great. And he posted that, he spread that, and people started paying attention. What did you say, Michael?
It's almost like a bunch of tweets or an ebook.
100%. So he was putting out content in X, right? And on the platform X, and it spread all over the world. His reputation preceded him. So that's what we see here, okay? And so if we actually are putting remarkable things out there to the world, to the market, your reputation will precede you, and you will be sought out. You don't have to go and look for someone to sell something to. People will actually come to your door, knock on your door, and say, how can I buy from you? Because they see what you have. They want to know more. They want to learn more, and they want to grow from you. So his reputation preceded him. That's what we see there.
Yeah, that's good. I'll go into verse 2. So you guys can go back to your Bibles. But so this is going to be verse 2 through 6. She came to Jerusalem with a very great company with camels that bore spices, very much gold and precious stones. When she came to Solomon, she spoke with him about all that was in her heart. So Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing so difficult for the king that he could not explain it to her. And when the queen of Sheba had seen all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his servants, the service of his waiters and their apparel, his cupbearers, and his entryway by which he went up to the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. Then she said to the king, it was a true report which I heard in my own land about your words and your wisdom. So she goes there. She's a little bit honestly skeptical going there because she came to test him with hard questions.
Right.
And then she's asking him all these tough questions, and they're not even hard for him. They're simple.
No, they're a piece of cake.
Yeah, they're simple questions. It wasn't even difficult for him to explain. So she saw the effects of his wisdom, even by seeing like what his servants were wearing. She was like, "Oh, this guy's loaded." If his servants are wearing Gucci,
but probably the way they were also being excellent.
Yeah, and probably even just the service and how she was being treated.
Right.
And everything about him was excellent. It wasn't mediocre. And so that's how his wisdom spread even more. But yeah, so one of the problems here, you can
So one of the problems that I see in business is that we're always looking for people to buy our stuff, like I mentioned earlier, and we're looking for the transaction instead of looking for making great products and creating a great business atmosphere. And if you think about something, Amazon, one of the biggest companies on earth currently, he actually didn't make money for many, many years. He didn't make a profit. because he kept investing in his business, kept investing in the process, kept giving a great experience for his customers. And so
Mm,
he was always looking out for the customer's interests first and foremost, and making it better. And
mm.
so I want to, set up our business so that we can give the best process, the best system, the best products to our customers, to our clients, to our students. And that's actually how we should always be thinking, how can we make things better? And
Mm.
maybe you're just starting out and you don't have it better. Well, don't make excuses for it, own it, and then make it better.
Yeah.
You should always be looking to make the things better. And so a lot of times, and that's actually principle number one that we can learn from King Solomon. Become great by doing great. That's actually the principle. So, how can we become, great in everything that we do? Because here's the fact, you can be a part of the mediocre many, or you can be a part of the excellent few. And I learned this a long time ago from John Maxwell. I remember listening to him, and he asked the question, what's the difference between being ordinary and being extraordinary? I remember hearing that, and I was probably like 25 years old. And I'm like, I don't know what the difference is between being ordinary and extraordinary. And he said a little word, extra. And to be extraordinary, you just have to do the little extra. If you want your business or your products to be extraordinary and not ordinary, you have to do the extra. Put a little extra time, a little extra energy, a little extra development, a little extra skill to make that thing better, whatever that is. So we don't have to make things ordinary, and we don't have to just think about the transaction. We can actually create a great experience for our customers and our clients, not just a transaction, but a long-term reputation of being excellent. So the principle here is to become great by doing extraordinary things. And it really just takes the extra.
Yeah, and I even have seen this in especially the online space and a lot of different markets. People are just chasing like the quick buck and the ability to make money quick, which is possible in online space because it's still growing and it's still new.
Right.
And like we're in like different masterminds and groups, and I see all these people making a product and they're like, oh, they only focus on the marketing and making it like sound as amazing as possible. Someone buys their product, they make some money, but then the product sucks, right?
Right.
And that's where the online business can get a bad rap because it's like people buy this stuff and then it's cheeks, right?
Yeah, they become great at marketing,
Yes.
promoting the product or the business, but the back end looks terrible. It feels terrible. All those things. So
Yeah, or
people
they
think that it's a scam.
yeah. When there is obviously scammers in every market, but the point that we can take from this is whatever market you're in, whatever niche you're in, whatever product you're making, make it great and focus on the results of your customers, because it's almost like a revolving door. Like if you give someone a result and you give a best effort, that person's going to go tell somebody else, and then you're going to get another customer, and then that person's going to give you two more customers, and then you're going to get five, and then you get 10, and that's how it works. It's just like with Amazon. He started as a bookstore.
Right.
He saw that everyone's walking into bookstores. Why don't I just figure out how to deliver the book to their door? Oh, next thing, why don't I figure out how to deliver it to their door in 2 days for
Right.
free?
Right.
Right. So then you're just always thinking about how can the customer get a better result.
Right. Even Netflix was actually started based on the experience of the customer. They hated late fees.
Hmm.
That's actually why they jumped in, because they would, get a movie for one day, 24 hours, or even 48 hours. And if they came in late with it, they had a late fee. So they wanted to solve the problem of the late fee. And so what problem can you solve that people are experiencing, maybe in your in your same space, in your same niche, but they're experiencing in your competition something that's missing that you can make better.
Yeah.
Think like this, always problem solving, and that's how we become extraordinary. That's how we become excellent. And that's really the foundation of business, and that's how we get a good reputation. So let's keep on going here. Let's look at 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 9, okay? So this is Queen of Sheba saying this, all right? So she said, "Blessed be the Lord your God, who delighted in you, setting you on the throne of Israel, because the Lord loved Israel forever. Therefore he made you king to do justice and righteousness." And she gave the king 120 talents of gold. Okay, so she paid him for his advice.
Yeah.
Okay, and she did it through spices in great quantity and precious stones. There never came such abundance of spices, it says, as the Queen of Sheba gave to Solomon that day.
And we were even talking about this before, like what's the value of the amount that she actually gave King Solomon?
Yeah.
And if you convert it to nowadays currency, it's about $250 million, which is insane.
Yeah, talk about a premium offer right there.
Yeah, that's as high ticket as it gets.
Yes, $250 million
for one
to
day.
ask questions for one day from a king.
Yeah, and that's like, if you think about it like this, like King Solomon was almost like the original coach. Like he's literally consulting.
Right. Right.
She literally, it's an info product.
Right.
Like what we make nowadays online, she just went there, got his advice for a day, and then is like, oh, here's 250 million.
Right.
She knows the value. And I've even noticed this is a little off topic, but people who are successful and are always wanting to grow, they care about the result. They don't care about the cost, because that result is going to get them way more return. Like for example, with like high ticket offers, the high ticket offer audience is way different than the low ticket offer audience.
The mindset of
The
a low
mindset of
ticket
them is crazy. Like you say, oh, $20,000 product. They'd be like, okay, where do I wire it? Like they're ready to go because they know the result is so much greater. Where a low level mindset person will be like, oh, I don't know. Like that's a lot of money, but they're not thinking about this can make me way more in the long run. Because
they're not thinking about the ROI. They're thinking about how much it's going to cost me right now.
Yes.
But they're not thinking about the cost of inaction if they don't take the action.
Yes.
The ROI at the other end.
Yes.
There's a big difference.
Big difference. A little off topic, but
yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I like it. So from what we see here, principle number 2 that we can learn from King Solomon is that he was the advisor to his equals. That means that he taught kings and queens. He was the best king on earth. There was nobody like him, and he consulted other kings and queens. Okay. So in other words, he was the mentor to the monarchs. Okay. And that's actually the best place to start, because you might be, listening to this and we're like, okay, that's great that we can learn this principle that King Solomon taught other kings and queens. But what about me? Well, that's actually the place to start. Where you can start is, what results do you have?
Yep.
What area has brought you success? What area do you know a lot about?
Yep.
What area are you knowledgeable about? What area can you help people in? So people are always wondering what they should teach if they want to create courses or digital assets. What can they teach? What product can they come up with? Here's the answer. Okay. You are always best positioned to serve someone from where you came from. Okay. So what area of expertise do I have? What knowledge do I have? What am I passionate about that I have results in? That's the area that you can help someone in, of someone who's just starting out. Okay. So talk to that person. I would love to talk to my 20-year-old self.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to that person. I would tell them, this is what to do. This is what not to do. And this is how to get the success that you want in this space. That's what we're talking about. So the principle from King Solomon is to learn, that to teach people from what you know a lot about.
Yeah. And you guys, a lot of people think like, oh, I have to be like an expert in business stuff. Like we literally have students in our program. Like one lady, she teaches moms how to pain-free breastfeeding.
Right.
Like it's not like a crazy topic, but it's a pain point of moms. Like I remember my wife saying that breastfeeding was harder than birth, right? So if you can get a mom pain-free breastfeeding, then boom, you have your market, you have your niche, and you have your offer. We've helped people with, there was one guy who was a vocal coach, and he would help high-end singers, right?
Right.
And then there's another guy that it's actually another mom. She helps moms. She has a bunch of stuff in her offer, but one of them is like overcoming being overwhelmed. Doesn't seem like a crazy thing you'd think about, but it's a pain point of moms. They feel overwhelmed, right? Or sleep training, or discipline and parenting and all this stuff, right? There's so many things you can think of and create something for that people want results in. It doesn't just have to be something like King Solomon, where it's like how to manage a kingdom.
Right. Right. And I remember even teaching this to talking to a client, a prospect, and she wanted to learn different systems on social media, but she actually once a month, she was already very successful. She was making around $1 million a month. And she would have a training, like a master class live, and people would pay to attend this class. And she would teach people how to make bakery products, how to make, beautiful cookies. They were kind of upper echelon type cookies and bakeries and stuff like that. And she would teach people how to do it. And she would do this once a month, and she made about $1 million a month. Okay. And she was looking to scale her business. And so it doesn't matter what niche. If you know a lot about that area, it could be karate, it could be health, it could be, parenting, moms, dads, it could be, changing a tire. There's the list is endless of the possibilities.
Yeah.
What do you know a lot about that actually can help people get results? Because there's people out there ready to buy from you if you have a product. Okay. And that's the principle that we can learn from King Solomon. So let's keep on going.
Keep going.
Michael, why don't you do the next part?
Okay. Yeah. So another principle from King Solomon's life is Solomon was a communicator. This was one of his skills. King Solomon did public speaking. King Solomon did seminars, public forums, conventions. He spoke in front of crowds like we do today.
Right.
But he would gather them. He would talk to them all at the same time, and they would have to pay to attend it. It's literally like an event. And he would do it back then. And we even have like people, like clients, who coach people how to be roofers, commercial roofers. And we have other people teaching people how to
church planting.
Yeah, church planning. Like there's so many different niches, and your mouth is actually one of your biggest tools to creating wealth. And I even remember when I was younger, because I actually probably lean more introvert and a little more shy, like especially growing up as a teenager, and I never really like wanted to talk, right? But if you look at like the different tiers of what brings value to somebody, the first tier, you might have to help me with this, Dad, but
Yep.
the 4 levels.
The 4 levels of value. So the lowest level would be implementation.
Yeah.
The next level is unification.
So what are examples of that?
So implementation would be So implementation would be someone who's implementing the work. So if you go to
a target worker.
Yeah, like if you go to a hotel, and the person who's working the hardest in the hotel is usually the one that's cleaning the room.
Yeah, janitor.
The janitor, the house cleaner, the room cleaner, they're working the hardest. Okay.
And they're getting paid the least. So they're making about $80,000 or less. Those people who are implementers are making the least amount of money. Okay. But they're exchanging, the resource that they're using to make their wealth is their time over their muscles. So however many hours that I am putting in, and I'm using my back, I'm using my muscles for making wealth, is actually the resource that's being used. So that's called implementer. The next level is called unification. So unification is someone who's using the resource that they're using is management skills. So they're unifying a group of people to do the implementation. Okay. So they're using leadership skills to communicate, to gather to them, telling them what to do, keeping on schedule, being on time, doing these tasks, hitting the goals and so on.
And those people they're making they're managers at Taco Bell, they're managers at different places. So they could potentially, depending on, what arena, but they're making around $250,000 or less, but most of them are probably making around $80,000 to $100,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're capped based on their management skills.
And they're
The
still
next,
using time for money. It's just they have a skill of managing people and delegating.
Yes. The next one is communication. So communication would be someone who's using their mouth as the resource. And because we had a client that we helped with vocal coaching, I looked up what the average income was for a singer. The average income, annual income for a singer in the United States is $124,000.
Wow.
Okay. So whether it's you're selling cars or, you're making movies or you're singing. Taylor Swift, I think she was worth last year $750 million. Okay. She's a singer.
Now she's a billionaire.
She's a billionaire now. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is she using for that resource to make that wealth? Music. Her mouth.
And that's what King Solomon is doing here.
100%. So that's the principle. I'm not going to keep on going, but he's addressing people through communication. So one of the greatest skills that we can learn as business leaders is how to communicate. And we need this more than ever. We've always needed that, but we need it now more than ever. That's marketing. That's sales. That's leadership within a team, right? You got to motivate. You got to inspire. Yeah. You got to work through conflict, and you do that through communication skills. So all of that is so critical. And Solomon communicated to his peers. He communicated to kings and queens. He made content. He wrote content. He spoke content. And so I think all of us can learn from this principle that he was a communicator to people. And people would, in my opinion, people would probably gather around and listen to him speak.
Yeah.
More than likely, that's what happened. And if you think about some of the greatest leaders, we want to learn from them. We want to hear from them. I want to learn, like, I remember learning from Jim Rohn, and different guys like that. John Maxwell. They communicated the principles that that would help me as far as a leader.
Yeah.
And so we want to learn to become great communicators as well.
100%. So let's go into the next principle.
Yeah.
King Solomon. So next one is anchoring your business in continuity, having a continuity program. So what is that? Essentially, it's passive income. So in verse 25, it says, each man brought his present, articles of silver and gold, garments, armor, spices, horses, and mules, and it was at a set rate year by year. So it's essentially like a membership program for a kingdom.
Yeah. But they paid him a lot of money for it.
Yeah. So if you're the expert in something and you can figure that out based on about what we talked today, figure out how to consult, figure out how to communicate, figure out how to get something where someone can pay you month to month that's continually bringing in monthly revenue. That's passive revenue streams. So for example, like even us with teaching marketing, I honestly don't think of like this business as my passive income. I think of it as my producer. What I'm really thinking about is, I'm going to use this money to buy real estate. I'm going to use this money to buy apartment buildings and businesses and all this stuff, because that is going to create passive income for me until I'm 80, 90 years old. And then I can pass it on. That's how you create generational wealth, right? So you have to think also like that. Like maybe something might be making income for you right now, but you got to think longer term, how can something create money for me forever? That's why wealthy people always say, make your money work for you. And some people are confused by that, but that's essentially what it's saying. Like figure out how to make your money make more money.
Right. Yeah. And even on a digital asset, like a course.
Yep.
We have not even thought about this, but I guarantee you the Beatles kids are still living off the royalties 100%. Off the music.
100%.
And that's a digital product.
Yep.
That's a digital asset. Once you make it, and this is the power of a digital asset. Once you make it once, it took work to make it.
Yeah.
Okay, but once you make it once, you get paid again and again and again and again.
Yep.
And I'm actually creating a piece of content right now between a digital, an asset, and there's different types of assets. So there's limited assets and there's infinite assets. And that's what we're talking about right here.
Yep.
Passive income is, you know, a limited asset is like, for example, I own real estate or I own stocks. Okay. And I'm going to make passive income that way.
Yep.
Right. I could rent it out and so on. But if I sell that product, if I sell that house,
Yep.
then what happens is, yeah, I got paid a lot of money, but that cash flow ends when I sold that house.
Yeah.
Right. Where if you make a digital product, a digital asset, like what the Beatles did, okay, or
Could
many other singers,
could
or
be a
Jim
course,
Rohn,
could be a book,
could be a book, you know, or a course.
anything.
It could be, there's so many different things that you can,
Software.
right? A software, a game, you know, there's so many different things that you can create that's a digital asset. And that can get, you can get paid over and over and over again. And the power of this, an infinite asset, is that I get paid for that offer, but I still have that offer that I can sell over and over again to many other people. And
Yep.
that's the power. And that's actually what we see in verse 25, that he got paid year by year. So every single year, people would come and listen to him, and they would pay him a set rate, a set amount, okay, every single year, probably at the exact same time. He would
Yep.
probably have a gathering. Everyone come in the month of January. Make sure you bring your money, okay? And then I'm going to give you the value. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to advise you. I'm going to help you. Bring your questions too. But in exchange for that value of helping you, giving you that advice, there's going to be a set amount.
Give
What's
me a
that?
camel.
What'd you say?
Give me a camel.
Give me a camel. Give me a horse. And so that's the power of this. You know, it's so amazing to look at the principles from King Solomon's life. This is his business model.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was great. He was humble. He was teachable. And maybe he wasn't teachable at the end of his life, but he was at the beginning of his life. And that's where he got the wisdom to become wealthy. And God gave it to him. And it was actually the base is actually humility.
Yeah.
And so we can look at his life and just grab these pieces of wisdom for our own life. Success leaves clues.
Yeah. And as we're ending, I just want to do a quick overview of the principles that we can take from his life. First one, humility, like you said, anchor your life in humility. Second one, excellence. King Solomon did everything in excellence. Even his servants were wearing Gucci. Pretty extraordinary. Third one, advisor to his equals, serve others and be interested where they came from. So like be an advisor to people's pain points, figure out their problems, right? Third one, address the crowds. That's pretty much using your voice to communicate.
Yep.
Not trading time for money. Next one, continuity programs, systems, recurring wealth, right? So figuring out a way to get paid over and over and over again, like a digital asset. So those are some principles for today on King Solomon's life. Hope this helped you guys. If you like this video, please like it down below. Share it with a friend if this was helpful. If they want some of King Solomon's wisdom for their business, feel free to share it with your friend. But yeah, that's the end of the video today.
Awesome.
Hope this helped you guys.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.